I ran for a couple of years. I ran some of the, it's like one of the biggest underground poker clubs in Scandinavia, basically. It wasn't intended to be like that.
Well, right there's what I'm sure about.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.
All right, welcome back to the Business of Betting podcast. I'm Jeff Edelstein, senior analyst at InGame. We're going to get my name right there. We'll get there. We'll get there. Listen, we're live here at G2E. A little bit of a manic atmosphere, but it's good. It's fun. It's exciting. And I'm here with the co-founder and managing director of Next.io, Pierre Lindh. Pierre, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Jeff, for having me. I heard that you have been preparing some pretty tough questions today, so I just want to give you a little bribe here, perhaps. This is authentic, real Swedish candy.
Look at this.
Maybe you go easy on me today. This is not bullshit M&M, this is American M&M's quite right. This is real Swedish.
The M&M's are from New Jersey. It's my hometown, so settle down.
Okay, I'm not going to shit on your candy, but this is high-end Swedish candy.
Does plop mean something in your language? Or
it doesn't have any meaning. It's high-end good candy, so maybe you'll go easy on me today.
I'll try, maybe. But let's start here. At what age did you decide to become a criminal?
God damn it, yeah. I thought I had something nice going here today.
But for real, your origin story, as it were, is interesting, right? And I'm sure many people know it, but I'd love to hear, like, the nuts and bolts. You were running poker rooms in your home country, in Sweden, right? Well, like, how old were you when all this started? And like,
yeah, well, when people ask me, okay, how long have you been in iGaming? All right, where do we begin? So yeah, when it started at the age of 15, where at school, this was during the poker boom in the world. You know, Chris Moneymaker had just won the W, so everyone wanted to play poker. And so in school, we would play poker. And we played for like small bits of money and whatnot. And I was in charge of running the books in school. And to the teachers' dismay, right? They wanted to, like, who is running the books? They wanted to confiscate them and whatnot. But I kept them safe. And once I graduated school, I decided to start the poker tournament outside of school, essentially. So I ran for a couple of years. I ran some of the, it's like one of the biggest underground poker clubs in Scandinavia, basically. It wasn't intended to be like that.
Well, right there's what I'm sure about. Because me and my friends were playing poker for the boom, a little bit older they obviously. But yeah, we were playing our home games, and we would get up to, like, 15, 20 people sometimes, but we never took it to the next step. So what made you say, hey, well, let's do this, like, as a real business?
I mean, it was just, we just loved playing poker. Right. And I think I discovered that kind of gambling and events and community, that were like the 3 pillars that really came together for me really early. And that really is like the culmination of what I was meant to do. This was such a natural thing for me. Organizing these things, they wouldn't have been any other way, basically.
Well, we'll get to your organizing and everything later. But I got to know more about this. So how many, was it one club or was it numerous clubs?
I had one poker club, and we would be up to like 150 people playing. I mean, we'd play like 4 or 5 times a week.
Right.
But the club was very, very innocent. That was the thing. Because we were just very, very passionate about poker.
Right.
So we didn't have any alcohol. There was no other forms of gambling in this venue. We always called it like a child care for grown-ups. We would gather at like 7 p.m. We started playing poker for like, $20, $30 the tournament. And we'd play until, 6, 7 in the morning the next day. Without any alcohol, anything. We just playing poker. Yeah.
And you're how old at this point when you're running this?
So we started at 17 now. Yeah.
Did your parents have any inkling?
Yeah. They were aware of that.
They were aware? Yeah.
It was such a common thing to play poker at that time. And it just blew up, poker in Sweden. There was a poker club in every little village in Sweden. Mine turned out to be a bit bigger than those. But yeah, then 28th of October 2006 was a particular big event that I had organized at that time. And in the middle of the night, boom, 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 the doors open. A police comes up, put down the cards, release the chips. Who is organizing here? And then me, I had just turned 18 a week before. Like, yeah, I'm the organizer. And the thing was, the police had been hearing about this like gambling operation that had popped up in this town, And they didn't know what this was, so they thought that maybe this is like a Hells Angels type thing. Right. These criminals ring,
You look
they
like
had no idea. Yeah, they had no idea what to expect.
Right.
They got reinforcement from neighboring towns, and it was big operation that they did. And then they realized, this is just like a bunch of kids playing poker, basically. So they realized it was a very innocent type thing eventually.
So what did happen though as a result? I mean, did they shut you down or did you add?
Yeah, so, as you do, like 18, you think you're immortal. So I continued to run the tournament during this case. And it was like a 6-month process. I was the next day in Sweden on the 29th of October, 2006. I was on the front newspaper on all the 3 national newspapers in Sweden.
God.
Because poker was just such a national thing that came up. And it was the first time that they had done anything towards this very innocent club, so to say. Obviously, it was really like turbulent time at that time. I was enacted into the Swedish Poker Federation during that time. So I was part of lobbying for poker in Sweden for the legalization of poker. And it was a long process, 6 months. Eventually, they realized that it was such an innocent small thing.
Right.
They didn't find that much, and anything, so it kind of dwindled away eventually. But that was the start of my career. So when people ask, how did I get into gaming, that is my origin story.
That's a great origin story. Now, you said that the poker boom really took off in Sweden. Had people been playing poker much before the boom? Like, was it something that was part of the national culture?
Yeah, you see that we are grown up with playing cards, especially up until that generation before smartphones and computers and anything. Anyone knows what a pair is. Everyone knows what a flush is. We are grown up with that terminology, and we are grown up with cards. Yeah, so when the poker boom happened in the early 2000s, with Texas Hold'em specifically, Sweden had a very big history of playing draw poker. That was very common to 5 cards, they draw and so on. But then Texas Hold'em really revolutionized poker into the next level. But everyone already knew what poker was. Everyone already knew the standard deck of 52 deck of cards. So it was very, very natural for the population to just pick it up and start playing straight away. It's very much in the culture of Swedish, kind of card playing culture to pick it up, which was not the case, say, in Asia, for example. They are not grown up with those type of terminologies, the decks of cards. And that's why you saw at that time that some countries it just boomed straight away, whereas others, didn't really have that.
So it's interesting, here in America, the boom, people knew poker and people played. The boom obviously took off, and then there was kind of like that. And it's kind of even out. I'm just curious. In Sweden, did the boom? Has it continued to this day? Are kids still play poker, or is the computer and the internet taking that part of it away?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I used to travel to the WSOP as a poker reporter then for many years, and I saw the rise and rise and rise. The last year was when Jamie Gold won, and he won the biggest prize pool ever. And the year after that was when the Black Friday happened, then, right? So playing online poker from an American context, it just crashed, and a lot of the WSOP and the hype was kind of fueled by these kind of underground online operations that sent a lot of players into the WSOP. So then for many years, kind of poker went into, let's say, a bit more of a dark period of time, where poker went down and down and down, and there was less people playing at the WSOP, less money involved, and so on and so forth. But now it really has made its return again. I mean, I think this year at WSOP was the record again, the biggest win, the biggest prize pool in the WSOP main event. But I think it's especially the live poker that has come back. Online poker,
it's not fun anymore.
It's not fun anymore. A lot of bots now. The bots are almost to the point where they can play GTO, so optimal strategy in real time. So that's a big problem in online poker to combat that. The level of play is really, really high now, so it's very hard for recreational players to enjoy online poker. Whereas in the live context, you can still sit down and kind of play.
Do you still play?
I play from time to time. I come into Vegas, I sit down a little bit. Although I must say, even here, now more and more people are starting to sit with big headphones, big sunglasses, and people don't want to socialize anymore. And that was the thing in our time. It was all about that's how we grew up. I mean, I grew up around the gambling table.
Right.
That's how we, as a context of my teenage years and my 20s, I grew up playing poker with my friends.
Exactly the same story.
Right? So that you don't really see that much anymore. It's more,
I remember sitting in my buddy Rob's house. And we had a game from sophomore year in high school through college. We would have 2 or 3 games a week, rotating cast of character, between 8 and 12, 15 guys would pop in and out. And I remember this, I just distinctly remember this, sitting at my buddy Rob's kitchen table. There's 6 or 7 of us. We're playing baseball and, all the nonsense games. But it's all just kibitzing bullshit back and forth. And Rob's father says to the 7 dudes at the table, why don't you guys go out and meet girls? And we're like, this is kind of more fun, you know, like this is, we're having more fun doing
Who
this.
needs girls?
Who needs girls, you know? It had that sense. And we still, you know, it's funny, my high school friends, we still try to get, you know, we still try to get together a few times a year just to, you know, to have some fun. But yes, when I was growing up, when you were growing up, it seemed it was so much more of a social thing than it is today, right? I see, you know, you see someone with the headphones and the sunglasses
Why are you doing that? You know, like no one is gonna sit there and be a professional poker player at the like $1-2 cash game table. This is not gonna happen.
Right.
You know, so like, you know, they think they are. I mean, it's a bit sad to me to see actually. Yeah.
I do also remember during the time that I was, you know, playing with all my friends, I was pretty good. Like I was considered to be better than, I thought I was better than average amongst my friend group, right? Because I was a little bit more, I wasn't very conservative. You know, I'd push. So I said, I'm going to go down to Atlantic City. I'll join, you know, I'm going to do a Hold'em tournament.
Yeah.
I think I'll do all right. And I remember I sat down and I just remember like all the liquid I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm so out of my league. Even in this like Tuesday afternoon, you know, $25, whatever it was, you know. And I was quickly getting an education.
But that's the fun thing about poker. It's like you can't hide your emotions in poker. It's very easy in your regular life to like play the tough guy. But in poker, you will see who is scared, who plays tight, who plays loose, and so on. You can't escape it.
Right.
That's like one of the beautiful things about poker. It's like you see deeper into people. Like
whoever said it, I don't know who said it, but they were right. If you can't spot, you know, the sucker at the table,
you are the sucker.
you know, you're it.
Chelsea, Matt Damon.
Well, there it is, right?
Rounders,
of course. You have to forgive me. You know, the brain as you age, you start forgetting this stuff. So we're here at G2E, obviously. You know, you've been running the Next IO event. How many events do you guys put on a year?
I mean, we started our event company 12 years ago. We ran over 800 events across the world. And it's in the last 6 years where we were building Next.io then as our main brand.
Right.
So, the first Next.io summit happened 2019.
And so you just do that once a year?
And we host one event in Malta, which is our flagship event, 6,000 people. And we have the biggest online gambling dedicated event in North America, which is in New York in March, basically.
All right. So I haven't been to either of your events. People say, how many times have you been to G2E? I'm like, this is my first time. I really don't want to be here. You know, it's a hassle. My wife with the 3 kids. It's a whole thing. And for somebody like me, I'm a reporter, I'm a writer. There's nobody's breaking stories here. You know, it's kind of, you know, it's a lot of like shaking hands, people looking at my name tag, not recognizing my name and walking by. You know, so for me, it's not all that. I don't feel I get that much out of it covering events like this. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm the only one who says that. Almost everybody I talk to is like, oh, you know, it's like, are you going to G2E with the, and I'm not.
Do I have to?
Kind of. And I'm not saying this to piss on G2E, but I'm saying this in general, industry events, no matter the industry, there's like a certain like exhaustion factor that kind of kicks in.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, as someone who's, you know, obviously like yourself, been in this business since, you know, birth, what are you doing with your events that make them worth it? You know, if I'm saying, like, you know, to make it more interesting for the people who are coming.
Yeah. So I think the standard way of organizing a conference is you host them, you just put them on as an exhibition floor, and it's kind of like good luck to the delegates to figure out themselves how to create success. But I think we try to take it to the next level, where instead we are looking at these events from a very personal perspective. We always say like the best event managers are able to create mental models of, okay, if an extrovert who is deeply connected in the industry move around our event, what will they do? Or if we have an introverted person who might not have a great network, how will they move around in our event? And then we try to create the event based on all these different type of personalities. But you have to recognize, unlike a Guns N' Roses concert, which has a very common theme amongst participants that everyone loves Guns N' Roses music, so therefore you just have to play Guns N' Roses music to make them happy. There isn't a general theme in a professional conference that binds people together, other than that we are professionals and we are trying to do business. So when we organize a conference, the way to succeed is to cater to all different personality types. So whether you are young, whether you're older, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, man, woman, different interests, if you're a morning person or an evening person, whether you're a sporty person or you like to be by the bar, you have to create the experiences that cater to all personality types. And that is, for me, what separates okay conference from excellent conference, let's say. And so at our shows, if you ask them, how was your week? they will have very, very, very different answers to how their week was. Some people will say that it was great because they got to learn a lot of things, for example. Others will say it was great because I got to meet a lot of new people. Others will say it was great because I met the people that I had planned to meet or so forth. And we try to create an agenda that everyone can create their own unique experience based on their own personality and the needs in their business and what they are looking to achieve.
You said your personal home base has been in Malta for over, you said
15 years, yeah, oh my gosh.
So you're gonna have to educate me a little bit here. I know Malta's like a home base for a lot of gambling companies. I mean, obviously that's why you're there, but did you have a company that demanded Malta, like politics, that you needed to be there?
No, I mean, Malta is the mecca of the industry, if you will.
Right.
The cradle of iGaming, very early in the 2000s. The industry was very early on made up by a lot of Swedish, UK, and American entrepreneurs, kind of founded the industry. And interestingly enough, like a lot of Swedish entrepreneurs specifically. And the reason for that is that the Swedish government took a really early decision in the 90s to invest heavily in broadband internet. So the Swedish population very, very early on became internet native, which then led a lot of entrepreneurs to come up with the idea to offer online gambling.
Right.
Some of the earliest to do that. Obviously, Sweden is a monopoly at that point. There wasn't any regulation for gambling outside of the state actor. So Malta then was one of the earliest jurisdictions to set up an actual gambling framework, legal framework.
Gotcha.
So a lot of the companies were then set up in Malta early on by really respected and good entrepreneurs, which then led Malta to become a really good, solid, respected jurisdiction for gambling. And so fast forward, 25 years, Malta now holds some of the most respected kind of integrity-driven gambling companies. So if you want to, now it's a lot about like, there's such a good ecosystem in Malta of suppliers, operators, the government is very friendly as well to the industry. So setting up a gambling operation in Malta is preferable thing to do. Yeah.
So, you were talking about Malta, and like, if you're in this industry, you're familiar with Malta. Malta. I know nothing about Malta, and I doubt many of my listeners do either. Like, give me a geography, culture. Give me a little lesson. Like, if I'm going to Malta for weeks on vacation, what am I doing?
Okay, so the pitch then to as a tourist would be that Malta has some of the oldest and most ancient ruins in the world, older than the pyramids.
No kidding.
Actually, so it's outside of Sicily. You can even see Sicily from the shoreline in Malta, and a really clear night. So you can see even the mountain and as well with that from Malta. It's a beautiful island with a massive amount of history. It's really business friendly. They are very, very forward thinking, the island. The government is really on the ball, working with the entrepreneurs and attracting really good businesses into Malta. So unlike a lot of other island cultures, say Sicily, for example, or Ibiza on the Spanish side, these islands they kind of stand still in time. But Malta, it's very business friendly and it's a very, very strong business hub in the Mediterranean. It was also another fun fact about Malta is during World War II, Malta was the most bombed country on earth.
Really?
Because the Maltese were they were allied with the British. And from the Italian side, they were trying to get Malta to surrender. It's a very strategic base in the Mediterranean. You have Malta, you control the Mediterranean.
Right.
So the Axis powers were trying to get Malta to give up, essentially. And the Maltese are very proud of their history that they never surrendered to the Axis powers. Eventually, the British were able to supply the island with defenses. And as a result of that, the Maltese were awarded the George Cross, which is the highest honor from the British side, which you can now see on the Maltese flag, which is red and white with a cross on the flag. That is the George Cross that they were awarded from the Second World War, the bravery of the Maltese people.
How big is it?
It's very tiny.
Yeah.
You have 500,000 people there and about 20 miles across.
20 miles.
20 miles across, yeah, something like that, yeah.
That's something. And it has its own culture? Is it lean from does it draw from is it a Mediterranean? I mean, does it draw from Italy or is it its own?
No, it's an independent country.
No, I understand that, but it's like
in the culture.
Yeah.
So Malta pretty much has had every culture in that vicinity that as one point or the other controlled Malta. So you had the Turks, there's a lot of Italian influence, there's a lot of British influence, as it was a British colony for a long time.
But if I'm going out to dinner at a nice restaurant in Malta, what am I getting?
So the Maltese specialty is rabbit, actually.
Rabbit?
Yeah, they're like big rabbit, which is like, I tried rabbit one time, I don't know. I'm not a little bit bad for the ramen. So, I was like the one time, but that is the proud dish of the Maltese people.
Is it seafood? I mean, you're on an island.
Lots of seafood, of course. They have the south of the island. It's the coastal town there. They're very proud of the daily catch and so on. So you can get great seafood as well.
I'm there for the seafood.
Yes,
I'm there for the seafood.
All right.
Going back to your conference for a second. So again, you've been in this industry for such a long time. You've done a lot in the industry. If you had an opportunity to tabula rasa, blank slate, start over, okay, what would you do?
So at this point, I can say during the years, we've had a lot of different companies that try to acquire Next. I suppose as an entrepreneur, you kind of overvalue your own business. So no one has ever even been close to wanting to buy us out for what we think that our business is worth. And I think as the reason for that is the business is so close to my heart, and it is such a ingrained part of my own personality that is really difficult to separate me from my business. And so when you ask this question, what would I do if I had a clean slate? I have a really, really difficult time to imagine how my life would look like without Next. So I guess the best answer I could give you is that I would just start Next.ia and I would model it exactly the same as my current business, because the business is like an extension of me. If that makes sense.
What percentage of your day-to-day is spent thinking about the conferences that you put on, as opposed to I know you have a website and other things.
How much of your time a day do you spend thinking about your children?
Okay.
It's not a 9-to-5 business. Neither is it for our staff, for that matter as well. We're really passionate about what we do.
Right.
So when we wake up in the morning, we dream at night. Sometimes I dream about my business. I wake up and the thoughts are a mix of my personal life and my business, which is, again, very intertwined.
Right.
So I think we live and breathe the business 24 hours a day.
It's fascinating what you just said, that if you could start over, you'd probably just do it again. Right. I've often thought personally, if I could do whatever I want to do, what would it be? And I feel paralyzed by the notion of it. Right?
Yeah, it's very difficult to imagine that.
It's a scary thought to be able to do whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks to your dedication to this and love of it that you would just say, do it again.
Yeah. It's just my life. I don't think about it that much as work or what I do for work. This is what I do with my life. I have a few things I do with my life on a daily basis. I try to reach a goal with our company. I like to be out running in the trails. I like to spend some time with my girlfriend and my dog, and these things. And that is the life put together. And then,
so let's talk personal. How long have you been with your girlfriend?
So all those 5 years.
All right, so fuck him.
Yeah. Still.
Yeah. Borrow this.
Okay. we trade. You get the candy. I get the.
So let's go. When we get married.
Yeah, well, that's the question I'm getting a lot. But especially when I go to the States, funnily enough. Well, that's always the question.
We want you to join the club.
Yeah, exactly.
For better and for
I think it will be. It will be at some point soon. I think.
So if we're getting too personal, you let me know. Is she from Malta or is she?
So she's Colombian.
She's Colombian,
which is a good mix between fire and ice.
Yeah, seriously.
And in a funny way, that kind of works.
Right. No, I think absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with that. So, all right, how about this? Let's fast forward down the road. You have a 16-year-old son. Would you want him to follow your footsteps, I guess? Would this be a family business? Or now, obviously, kids are going to do whatever kids want to do. But would you want them to be introduced to gambling, basically? Or
as you say, kids do what they will do eventually. You'll have maybe some influence over them, but the way I envision it is I'm very sporty. I like to be out. I like to do a lot of ththings. So I'm just hoping that my future child will also be active like me. I explore things and is curious and want to learn a lot of things and so on. And then professionally, what they want to do will be up to them, kind of thing. But I just will hope that I get a very curious person, because otherwise I will bore them to death with all crazy facts about World War II and Malta and all these strange things that comes through my mind on a daily basis. So.
It's funny. I have 3 kids. My 16-year-old, my son, we share none of the same interests. He's not into sports, not into gambling. He likes drinking beers. I'm finding out now.
So that's how you connect.
Well, I mean, my wife won't let us connect that way yet, but we'll connect that way. But what's this is my youngest, my 11-year-old, my daughter. She comes up to me out of nowhere. And my son, his musical tastes are rap, and it's not for me. But my youngest, my 11-year-old, comes up to me out of nowhere. I never introduced her to any of this stuff, and we're going to talk about this today. She goes, "Do you like Motley Crue?" My 11-year-old daughter says something
about us.
And I said, Yeah, I do. And so now I've started introducing all these bands that I listened to as a kid, including, you mentioned earlier, Guns N' Roses. I was chomping to say, did you just pull out of thin air, or are you a fan?
I mean, this is just after my generation. So
Right.
I grew up with my brother being really into Guns N' Roses.
Right.
So like I have a little bit of the influence. Like I love that music, from that era. The 90s rock music, metal. I mean, it's amazing.
So if you like Guns N' Roses, well, here's a great story. So I love Guns N' Roses. I was, their album came out, I was a sophomore in high school, so I was like right in it.
Yeah.
First concert I ever saw was Guns N' Roses opening up for Deep Purple and Aerosmith at Giant Stadium, right? And now, Giant Stadium was like 80,000, 90,000 people, and Guns N' Roses had not gotten huge yet. Like, they had released their album, and they had released Welcome to the Jungle as a single, but it didn't really catch on.
Yeah.
And so normally when you go see a concert, an opening band, especially the third act, at a 90,000-seat stadium, you'll have 10,000 people in the stadium, right? Everyone is still in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I go in, it is 90,000 strong.
Wow.
Everyone's there to see.
People are waiting for Guns N' Roses.
See Guns N' Roses.
Wow.
Part of their Paradise City video was filmed there, as it turns out.
All right.
So
Check that out.
so this happens when I was 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
Fast forward 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm working for a newspaper, and Slash, the guitarist, he's with Velvet Revolver at the time, and they're coming through Trenton, the city where I work. And so I get a chance to phone interview, right? Which is awesome, right? And so, well, I didn't even know, because when you sign up to do these things, they say, hey, do you want to interview somebody? We'll hook you up. At 1:45, we'll call you. And I don't know if it's going to be Slash. I don't know who it's going to be, right? And they're talking to me, the Toronto Star, Des Moines, they're going through everybody.
Yeah.
So my phone rings, some PR guy says, Mr. Reynolds, I have Slash on the phone. I'm like, oh, awesome. So I'm interviewing Slash, right? And I'm having a fun time. And about 5 minutes in the interview, so I've been from Trenton, all those boring questions. And I go, listen, man, I hate to do this. I hate to be not professional, but I love you. I love getting Guns N' Roses, my favorite band. It's like, thanks, man. I'm like, as a matter of fact, the first concert I ever went to was when you opened up for Deep Purple and Aerosmith at Giant Stadium. Dead silence on the phone. And this is what Slash says, dude, that's my favorite concert ever.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. That's when it happened,
That's exactly right. He goes on to tell me they had been in England, been in the UK touring, and they had heard that there was a buzz building for them back in the States. But they didn't know how big the buzz was. This was their first show back from that UK tour.
Oh, wow.
They had no clue that there was going to be, everyone was going to be there. And he said, he goes, I'm writing about it in my autobiography. A year later, his autobiography comes out, and there's like, a whole chapter dedicated to that one concert.
Oh, wow.
That's really
you were
cool.
part of history.
Part of history. I like to think that without me, Guns N' Roses.
Then you were part of, lifting them forward. And then now you can bring that to your daughter.
Oh, believe me, I've told her the story. She's probably as interested as all the listeners right now. One thing that we haven't talked about that everyone is talking about here is the future. Oh my gosh, the future of gambling, because at least here, obviously in the States, we're at such a major inflection point, like everywhere. Like between, in the last, more has happened in the last 7 years in America than probably in the 700 years previous,
for sure.
Right?
Yep.
And it's, the prediction markets and everything. And so, and I know you are, next.io, you are definitely have more of a, global view, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I am curious, as everyone here at G2E, as every conversation like future, prediction markets, blah, 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 blah. Does this stuff weigh as heavily in the international world or just not nearly as much?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the difference between the Americans and the rest of the world is that the Americans are incredibly creative. So these alternative products and alternative verticals like sweepstakes, skill gaming, for example, and prediction markets, these are basically results of a very creative way of finding yourself into a regulated way of offering gambling-like products. Same with DFS, in the 2000s.
Sure.
Another, really creative way is someone kind of exploring a loophole in what was done, the Eureka. And what happened, there was a little provision in Eureka that banned poker. That was the purpose of the whole Eureka law that banned online gambling. But there was a provision there that allowed fantasy sport, which then led to the realization that we can turn this into a more gambling-like day-to-day product. So the Americans are extremely creative and coming up with these type of solutions, which we don't really see in the rest of the world. In the rest of the world, it's more a question of, do you want to operate in the regulated territories or in the black markets? Yes, it used to be that there was a big gray space in the middle where a lot of gambling operations could operate in gray markets. Definition of a gray market would be a market that hasn't yet set a legislation whether for or against gambling, essentially. But the gray space is shrinking. And so if you want to ask, like, what is like the underlying trend that we see in the industry right now from a global perspective, is that companies no longer is able to thread this gray space anymore. They have to take stance whether they are going to operate in the regulated space or in the unregulated space. Here in the US, there's that third choice, which is, do you want to operate in this creative alternative vertical space? And which of those products do you want to choose? Right now, prediction market is the hottest product. A year ago here at G2E, it was dominated by sweeps, So maybe some other thing will come here next year. So I think that is like the underlying trend from a US context too, where the regulated space is very, 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 very difficult. And maybe there's a case to be made that there's over-regulation, and as a result of that, this space is opening up more.
Well, that's a good point. Do you find that the regulations in America, and especially the way it's done on a state-by-state basis, create just way too many issues compared to other countries?
I mean, the US is a space for the giants. And then it's just a simple truth, right? In the regulated space, there's only a few operators, 3 core operators that are generating meaningful GDR at this point. And to even think of trying to enter the space as an operator is dead in the water. When the space opened up and cut-off was repealed and you saw more states, the European operators came into the US as like the promised land, and they kind of went into the geography with the European mindset that there are 100 operators in each market. Everyone is doing well, and so that's gonna be the reality in the US as well. But I think the reality of doing business in America in general, I think difference from the European perspective is it's ruthless in the US. There is no second place here. It's dog eat dog in the US, and either you are all in or you are not going to make it here. And so this was a really heavy lesson for the European companies that came here with all the expertise, all the knowledge they have collected over 20 years, great products, but they were just not able to survive in this really like dog eat dog environment.
Did they realize that? Like, as it's I mean, obviously they know it, but do they agree with that sentiment? That's the reason?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd say so, yeah. Here in the States, it's so important. Your brand is very important here. So say like difference of the Swedish market, where new brands tend to do really well in Sweden because people like fresh, new look, and they like some niche brand that speak to some niche part of the population. Trust is not really a big thing in the Swedish market. It's gone beyond that, where trust is not really an issue.
It's just applied.
Yeah, whereas in the US, I think, especially as the industry is much younger, to see a brand like DraftKings or FanDuel that you see, in the center of the mat of the UFC, or when you look at the football game, it just generates different level of trust. And I think the Americans are maybe a bit more loyal towards brands that they like, whereas that is just complete opposite in Sweden. There's no loyalty towards brands. So the strategy becomes just launch as many brands as you can, right? Rather than DraftKings that only have 2 brands, I think they have, right? With DraftKings and Golden Nuggets, I think. Yeah. It's just a different culture, and that is the big learning. Even when the industry started to expand into other territories, Africa, Latin America, it's very difficult to run these operations from Europe. It's a different culture, so you need to understand the culture that you're operating in order to be successful. And that was a big learning from the Europeans, for sure.
Another thing, we were talking off camera earlier, is another issue that I think that you, and if I'm putting words in your mouth, correct me, that another issue that you think some of these companies have is the idea that, like, for people that are involved in the gambling world, they don't do a heck of a lot of gambling themselves and don't understand don't necessarily understand the product, the consumer. Is that something is that for real? That's a big concern of yours.
Yeah, I mean, think about like esports, for example. It's like a very passionate business vertical. And if you work in, let's say, a leading esports company and you work on that side of the fence, most likely you are going to be an esports player yourself. It's difficult to slide into that business from something completely different and not be passionate about esports and do well, because there's just a pool of very passionate people that will be willing to outwork you because they just work with what they love.
Right.
Whereas in the gambling, it's a very funny thing in this industry that it's a big industry. Here at G2E, we have 30,000 people here. I researched a project one time where we asked people in the industry, have you gambled online in the last 12 months? 85% said no. I find it pretty interesting that the industry is made up of a lot of professionals who don't understand the product themselves or why. I mean, I hear all the time of like people who are like they see gambling as like something dark, or they just don't connect with the fact that, 99% of players play recreationally for fun. I'm grown up with gamblers. As like I've traveled across Sweden in all these small gambling places, where the true gamblers were playing poker and other gambling products. What I saw was a very different perspective, where most gamblers in those circles were just having a really nice time. Like it was just good people trying to connect with others, and this was their entertainment hobby and so on and so forth. And to me, it's a bit sad, maybe, I think, that there's a lack of passion, I think, in the industry.
All right, I'm gonna ask you this, I'm gonna let you go. Nobody's come close to buying X.io from you. The numbers hasn't been right. You ran some poker clubs, you've done a lot of things in your life. So let's say the number's right. Let's say someone comes in tomorrow with the right number. You can't say no to it. And then, would you ever want to be like the CEO of like a struggling gambling company, comes in and says, hey, listen, I heard you on the podcast, you're right. We need someone like it. Would you be interested in running it from that end?
As a CEO of a struggling gambling operator.
Yeah, now you're running, like taking a struggling gambling operator. Lord knows there's enough of them. And trying to turn it into like a leader. Would that be something you'd be interested in at some point?
I mean, you have to be a bit of a masochist to dive into this type of project, I suppose. But that's also true for starting a company in the first place.
Yeah.
It's like, I think you have to be a little bit either on the masochist side, or you have to be delusional to go on this like journey to start a startup, because it's kind of like, someone said that it's like eating glass and staring into the abyss. The staring into the abyss part is like, most likely your startup is going to fail,
right.
And you know that. So like you are like working really hard for something that is probably impossible. And then the eating glass part is the stuff that you really love doing. You're probably not gonna spend time on, because you're probably gonna get the most like tedious and like shitty problems of the company. They're gonna land on your desk. So it's like eating glass,
I don't want to name the person, but I spoke to somebody here at G2E. I said, and I congratulated them because their company just hit a major milestone for themselves the other day. I said, congratulations on XXX. And he's like, oh, did we? He didn't even know.
Nothing.
And I go, and his words, to quote the notorious B.I.G., more money, more problems.
More money, more problems.
He didn't even realize that they hit this milestone,
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting what you said.
Yeah.
All right, listen, I've taken up so much of your time, Pierre. Thank you so much for doing this. A pleasure meeting you.
Enjoy the candy.
I'm definitely going to enjoy the candy. And then now I want to come to Malta and have some rabbit.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Thank you, Dip.
Thanks very much.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.